Finish today with climate change and the coming economic revival. The theme, of course, has been Deuteronomy 8:18, that God has given you power to get wealth. And we've covered a lot of ground. I began with the spiritual side of money, talking about stewardship and tithing and offerings and financial management, and we segued into some of the practical matters of managing money. It's a huge problem today. I would say that most of the people we reach are in some level of financial chaos in their lives. They weren't trained, they didn't learn how to manage money, and that may be a parental failure, or just sin and chaos and a lack of discipline and understanding about money. So let's read the text, Deuteronomy 8:18. I won't expound on it other than just to read it, and then we'll move on with some of the things we want to look at today. We're going to have another Q&A today, and I'll explain how we're going to go about it in a few moments. Deuteronomy 8:18, you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he swore to your fathers as it is this day. So we do want to reemphasize the text here in the context of God's purpose for giving you power to get wealth. Nothing evil about money. You can be rich and be a great Christian. That depends, of course, on your character and your willingness to obey God in the financial realm. Rich people can get into serious financial trouble. The Bible gives us plenty of warning. We've gone over that. You can refer to 2 Timothy chapter 6 for some information about the danger of wealth, the danger of riches. So what I want to do today, I'm going to make a few comments in general about some important principles that have to do with your management of your money. And then we're going to look at three different financial situations that I think relate to where most of us are at today. And then we're going to look at these financial situations, income and expenditures, and see what a person in that financial situation should do. Without explaining more about that, we'll get to that in a moment. So I want to make a few points as we open this up today. First of all, I want to make it very clear that having more money is not the solution to your financial situation. It's not. With many, more money would just simply make your existing problems worse. You'd make the same bad decisions, same lack of discipline, same carelessness with handling money, and you'd get yourself into worse financial shape and worse debt. If you don't have a sufficient character, more money will make your situation worse. Now, you don't believe that. There are people here, nope, I need more money, I'd get out of debt, pay my bills up, but you'd get right back where you are. If you don't have a developed, sufficient character with such attributes as honesty and discipline, a good, strong work ethic versus laziness, more money is not going to help you. It will make your financial situation worse. Luke 16:11, Jesus gave a warning. Therefore, if you have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to your trust the true riches? And if you've not been faithful in that which is another man's, who will give you what is your own? So while that has a spiritual application, he does refer to being unfaithful with unrighteous mammon. So that's a possibility. You could be sitting here today, you're unfaithful. And that doesn't mean you don't tithe or you don't give offerings from time to time, but financial faithfulness is meeting your obligations, paying your bills, being responsible, and being financially solvent. So the first point is having more money is not the solution to your financial problems. Disciplining yourself with what you have is the solution, the beginning of the solution. You need to develop the character to handle more than what you have right now by being faithful with what you have. The number two, and these are not necessarily related, I want to just make a few comments about your credit rating. Bad credit early in your life is a big mistake. And I talk to people, they're in their early 20s, they've already got a credit rating in the 5s or even the 4s or the 3s. They've made bad decisions, run up credit card and then not paid it, and so forth. And here's the problem. Viewing the money that a credit card represents as your own money is a big mistake. But yet that's how a lot of people view it. You get a credit card with a $5,000 limit, somebody sends you, you begin to think about that $5,000 as your own. You start spending it like it's your own. You pay bills with it, you buy groceries with it, and then it's run up to the $4,000 to $5,000 range. And then you're stuck because your income isn't sufficient to do any more than paying minimum payments, and then you skip a few here and there. And credit rating is very fragile. If you have a 97% history of paying your bills on time, that's bad. Did you know that? Have you ever looked that up? That's a bad track record according to people who loan money. 95, 96, 97, 98, maybe not 98, but 97% is poor. You'll get a poor rating on your ability to pay your bills. So you need to manage that. There are ways of improving your credit rating, and if you don't have a good one, credit rating gives you low interest on buying a home. If you don't have a good credit and you find someone to loan you money, you're going to pay 8, 9, 10, 12% interest on the money that you're borrowing to buy a house. That's never a good situation. Good credit will get you 2%. Sometimes you can buy items if you have good credit with no interest. So your credit rating is very important. You need to see it. If you have a bad credit rating, you need to get help in how you're going to go about improving that. Keeping up with the Joneses. This is one of the problems with people who experience an uptick in how much they earn. They think, well, I earn more money, bigger house, bigger car, and they go crazy. And they exercise the same lack of discipline. Now I can get an iPhone 7, now I can get this, now I can get that, instead of living within means and maybe keeping your expenses the same as when you earned a couple thousand a month as they are when you earn $5,000 a month. That would be a lot better for you to exercise that level of discipline. But people today can't control themselves, won't control themselves. And the spirit of jealousy, I've got to have what others have, and the spirit of materialism. We live in a world filled with all kinds of gadgets and furnishings and things to buy, things to get. And this is a very bad attribute to embrace. Far better to exercise discipline. My dad, as I've shared with you in this Sunday school, was born in 1916. He grew up with very limited means during the Depression, during World War II. His first jobs didn't pay huge amounts of money. By the time I came along and toward the end of the 50s, 60s, my father was upper middle class. We lived in a decent home, and I know that he could have afforded a bigger house, could have bought a bigger house, but my father was highly disciplined. He never one single time during his entire life paid interest on a credit card. That still boggles the mind. Always paid. He had a philosophy that by the time you get to your third house, you should be able to write a check for it. Now, that doesn't work for a lot of people, but that's how he functioned. And my father's generation, which is the same as Pastor Mitchell's, they didn't flash their wealth. They didn't have to have the most expensive of everything and the nicest. They didn't want everyone to know. They thought it was shameful if you conducted yourself in such a way so that everybody knows you got more money than others. They just function normally in life. I'm not saying that's the best thing in the world. Nothing wrong with having the nicest, but I'm just talking about a level of discipline that was at work in my dad's life that we would do well to embrace some of that in our lives. And the final point I want to make before we get to the first of our three situations is you need to live in the framework of reality. You make a finite amount of money, you live in the context of that. One of the things that we made the point of early in the Sunday school, you cannot spend more than you earn. Life today lets you do that by virtue of credit cards and all that sort of thing. You live in the framework of how much you earn. Everyone has a finite amount of money to work with, whether it's $2,000 a month or $6,000 a month or somewhere in between or more. You have to learn to live within the framework, have integrity within that context, live within your means, learn to be content with such things as you have. So if anyone else has points of wisdom that will help us in the course of today, because this will be the final lesson. We're going to do 2 weeks of videos from the Tucson Bible Conference, and then Pastor Glenn is going to begin the most fantastic Sunday school I believe he's ever done, and we'll announce the title of that. He doesn't want me to mention it yet because he doesn't have a pithy enough title, but we'll get to that probably soon. So, all right, so let's cut the lights here so everybody can see. This is situation number 1. Now, I tried to be practical here by laying out a situation that will describe where a lot of you guys are at, a lot of people are at. So this is a person with a $2,000 income a month after taxes. Let's say it's a husband and wife with a baby. $500 a week they clear. That describes a lot of people. Okay, these are their expenses. They tithe $240, and I put $240 because that is their before taxes are removed tithe. I believe in tithing on the gross, not in the net. I'm not going to argue with that today. If you want to try to whittle down your tithe as much as possible, like you do your income taxes, you go ahead. I'm tithing on the gross income that I have. I believe that's the first fruits. If you're going to tithe that by only paying on the net, then do the net after you pay rent and after you pay all your bills, and then the $12 that's left tithe on that, if you're going to carry that mentality to its full fruition. So I believe in tithing on the gross. People disagree with that. You can. We'll both stand before God. We'll see who does better. All right, so the tithe is $240. This person is pledging $50 a month to world evangelism. Their rent is $900. Their utilities are $150. Their car is $300. Their insurance is $120. Groceries are $300. What did you just do? Okay. Groceries are $300. Telephone is $120. You're paying minimum payments on a credit card, which is $65 a month. Miscellaneous expenses, $100. So that's $2,345 of expenses against $2,000 worth of income. So this person is minus $345 a month. A lot of people are there. That's how they function. That's how they live. So looking at that, what would you, if this couple was sitting in front of you and they're saying to you, listen, I need some help, I need some advice. It's obvious my wife and I aren't making it. What sort of advice would you give this individual? Brother.
I'm looking at the apartment or the house payment of $900.
It's not a house payment, it's rent.
Rent? Okay, yes. The rent payment, $900. I find that to be excessive.
Okay.
So that would be number one that I would.
So you're saying this person with this situation has got to downsize. They can't have the house of their dreams, all right? What else would you say? Somebody. Or Caesar.
I guess pretty much everything below the pledge. You can just rent a smaller place. You probably cannot afford a payment, a car payment. Get a used car, something that can run well. That's
all right. What should they do then with the car?
Many times you can refinance or try, sell it and buy something else that is more affordable. You can probably knock down $100 there. Then pretty much everything else you should be able to just knock down with phone. You can get one of those smartphones that you can just pay whatever you use from Cricket or Metro PCS. Don't get yourself into a mobile, T-Mobile, Verizon. You can probably knock down half of that money. And miscellaneous, you have to look at miscellaneous, what's in there, and probably be able to at least cut 30–40% of that expense.
Okay, so what they're saying is that if this is your situation and these are your expenses, you downsize where you can, right? You downsize where you can. Your tithe is fixed. Your pledge may be fixed. Utilities may be somewhat fixed, although you may be able to save 20 or 30 there if you have a smaller place and so forth. Groceries may be fixed. I'm not altogether sure about the amount. Some people, eat differently. So, if you have a filet mignon sort of appetite, you may want to get a hamburger type of appetite. And like Caesar said, telephone. All right, so what else could you tell this person? We've covered the idea that if this is a situation that you're in, you have got to downsize. You can't continue at a deficit of $345 because what you're going to do to cover that deficit is you're going to be using your credit card more than likely to buy groceries and other things. You're going to be increasing your debt. So apart from that, what would you recommend that this person who's married, earns $2,000 a month, has these expenses, what would you recommend they do, Jerry?
It's not always feasible, but this guy could actually get, a part-time work to try and pay things off. Like if he worked an extra 3 days a week or something like that, a part-time job, and he took that $150 and applied it to his car. Like you can't, a guy in this situation, a lot of times, he doesn't have the ability to refinance. He doesn't have the ability to do anything because he doesn't have
and
a
we're
lot
assuming this guy doesn't have great credit.
Right. You don't have a lot. So what you need to do is find a way. And I understand that 900 might seem like a lot to some people, but that's, how many kids, that's not a lot of rent. The guy's trying to do what he can do. So if he can get a part-time job and pay off his car and he doesn't have to get a new car after that. Right. He doesn't, something of that manner.
All right, so that's a great angle. So this person, if he's married and he's got a kid, and this is reality here, this is what it costs to live, and he's a little bit behind here, he may be able, I don't know if 30 or 40% is real. He could cut back at least 10%, maybe 20, maybe more, but he can start thinking about figuring out how to earn more money. And there's a whole realm. The possibilities are endless. Strategies have to be developed, a pathway to educating yourself or doing something that's going to give you a bigger wages. Obviously, it would have been wise to do that before marriage, before a kid, right? But so many people, they don't get educated, they don't act totally responsibly. They get married, they have a kid, now they've got all these added expenses, and they're a $2,000 a month kind of person. Now you've got to start thinking about, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? How can I increase my earning power? Would you not say that's a good way of going about this? Jonathan, what would you have to say to this individual if they were sitting in front of you?
I think pretty much covered already. The first things that you look at is the fixed expenses, and is there any way to lower those fixed expenses? Then variable, just like Caesar was talking about, trying to lower those as much as possible. But I think Jerry hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you're just looking at this income, if let's say you work Monday through Friday and you could take a Saturday afternoon and earn $50 every Saturday, that's $200 a month.
Yeah.
If you cut some of the fixed, cut some of the variable, and you add those 200, now you're in a different situation. So, yeah, I agree. Something on the side. Most of the people, if you're earning this income, you're just working a regular 8 to 5. But yeah, there are other ways you can earn that extra income. Like you said, though, the variable expenses aren't that high. It may not be possible to cut those 30–40%, but if you just cut by 10, add that income, then you're in a totally different situation.
Ernie, what would you have to say in a nutshell?
One of the things that I'm impressed by in our church is, even though there are some men and they work hard and they'll do some of those side jobs, okay, now it's not just one child, but it's 3 children, and it's a difficult situation. So in addition to what's already been said, there are some great wives in here that bring a lot to the table. And some of the women in our church I'm very impressed by, because they're at the house while they're taking care of the kids. They're also on the computer and they have a side job, and they're bringing in money to be able to supplement and help their family out. So, we always want to make sure that the wives are taking care of the kids. But if you can take care of the kids and be on the computer for, 10, 20 hours a week and help the family out, that's another option.
So anybody, Carlos is next. Anybody, let's say this is your situation and you want help. You can start by talking to Brother Ernie Lopez. There are others available, but you've got to get a plan together. You can't just make it up as you go along, live paycheck to paycheck. This person here has nothing, no money that they're putting aside for an emergency. There's none of the insurances that are being bought that we've talked about, that if you get injured or hurt, you can't earn money. What happens in this situation if the $2,000 a month guy breaks a leg at work? He doesn't have workman's compensation, let's say. He's out of work, there's no income, you're going to be in serious trouble. So all those things have to be factored in. You can pray, and we pray that God will overshadow us, but stuff happens in life, and you have to be somewhat prepared. Carlos.
Check. Oh, I thought they turned it off on me. I haven't even started.
Don't turn the mic off between
Pastor, if I lived in this scenario for a lot of years in my life like this, because I could never get it past this. But what I realized many years ago is that if you live on something like this, like they said, an extra job and stuff like this, that's just putting like a Band-Aid on the situation. If you're in this situation right here, Pastor, and you have a job and you're doing good and you're making this money, this is the time to look for a better job, not get another job. This is the time to actually say, you know what? I need to do something to better myself or give me a better job. And while you have a job like this, it's so easy because everybody out there wants people to hire people that have jobs. So I don't think getting a second job or a part-time job is going to help this guy, because he's making decent money. He's making a living and stuff like this. You have to say, if I do this for the next 10 years, I'm going to be in the same boat.
Yeah.
So the time is when you have a job like this and you're doing decent, is how can I get a better job and stuff like this. And at this time, Pastor, every company out there, if they see that you have a job and you apply for another job that's better or a better position or something like this, they're like, why do you want a job? You already have a good job.
Yeah.
Oh, because I need to pay.
Yeah, the other option is to be the best employee on your job. Make yourself indispensable, and then this $2,000 a month guy goes to the boss and says, listen, I've got a wife, we've got a child now, I'm not making it on this salary, I'm functioning at about $345 in debt, and I need a raise. Don't be afraid to ask for a raise. And again, what Carlos said, you be faithful on the job, you be diligent on the job, and nobody's right or wrong here. We're getting good advice from a lot of different angles, but this is all something for you to take into consideration. All right, I'll get to you again. Caesar's going to be next, and then others. Let's say that 5 years have passed now between situation number 1 and situation number 2. This is the same family. Now he's got another kid, so he's got 2 children, and she's pregnant with a third. And so now 5 years later, this same guy is earning $3,200 a month. And so he tithes 3,600. He's pledged 100. His rent or mortgage is 1,250. Because, you know, as soon as you start making more money, and a $2,000 a guy who's now making 3,200 thinks this is huge and I can do all these things now. Utilities 150, car 460. Let's say somewhere maybe the third year, he made a bad decision, got into a car payment that was very unwise. So now he's paying $460 on a car payment. His insurance is $120, groceries $300, telephone $120, debt $275 now because he's racked up 2 credit cards. Instead of having one with a $65 minimum payment, he's got 2 or 3 credit cards and he's juggling those, and miscellaneous at $350. So now this guy has $3,485 of debt, and he's negative $285. So you see how this can work. Nothing's changed as far as the actual situation. He's still negative because he doesn't have the discipline, the wisdom to look at what he earns and what he should be spending. He's gone a little haywire here with this additional income, and he has come to you. So now you advised the $2,000 a month guy 5 years ago what to do, and now he's sitting in front of you again asking for your advice. What would you tell the same guy now that he earns 30+% more, which is good? I mean, he's improving at least. What would you tell him? Okay, who's going to raise their hand? All right, Jerry. Okay.
I mean, the answer hasn't changed.
Yeah.
He has to do the same thing. And if you don't want to listen, well, then that's how he's going to live for the next 30 years.
Yeah. Okay, now you're going to start dealing with character issues. When he came at 2,000, you weren't aware of his character. Now you are. Now you know this guy's got a serious problem. When he's earning 2,000, I mean, there's nothing, you know, horribly, overtly extreme with his financial situation. It's the guy struggling, trying to do the best he can. You've given him some advice. He hasn't done a thing you've said, pretty much, except I've got more money coming in now. I'm earning $3,200, which is 36,000 or so a year. It's not bad. Person could live in this town, could live fairly comfortably with a decent home. You can even buy a home with that kind of income. You can even save money and have some of the insurances that we've spoken about. So somebody else, what would you tell, Jonathan, what would you tell this person that you spoke to 5 years ago, and now they're in front of you, and this is their situation? We need a microphone for Jonathan Lopez. And then give it back to Caesar. I didn't see you holding it there, sorry.
Well, unfortunately, like Jerry said, the answer hasn't changed much. But if he were to say, hey, let's rewind 5 years, and how were we living 5 years ago? Now, the rent there are a few things on here that they're inevitable. They had to go up because now he has another child and another one on the way. But the variable expenses, let's go back to where they were 5 years ago. And this is where you can get into some of the systems, like, for instance, the cash system, where you say, well, the problem now with debit cards and credit cards is it's so easy to every time you go do something, you just swipe. You have no idea how much you're actually spending. You've never really gone back and looked at it. So now that we're looking at it, we need to say, all right, that miscellaneous, we need to bring it down to 200. The telephone, like Caesar had said, that's too expensive. Let's bring it down to 80. But the miscellaneous is the big part here, where if you
include their eating out,
exactly,
all that sort of
exactly.
stuff.
So if we can make it to where, look, that miscellaneous needs to get down to $50 a week. So that means that on Sunday night or Monday, you pull out $50 and everybody uses cash only. If you run out of the $50, that's the end of eating out, of shopping, of Starbucks, of all that stuff. It's just cash at this point. And that's one way where you can sort of self-discipline. But the problem is, like you said, at this point it comes to character. And even if you do that for a week or two, at some point, if you don't change the character, then those habits are going to come back and you're just going to end up in the same situation.
So in the financial world, would someone like this get a lecture from a financial advisor about his character?
Absolutely. This is where, I tell people, look, if you really are serious, then I'll be the bad guy. I'm the accountability partner at this point, where If we sit down again, I mean, I've had multiple times where I say, look, 6 months later, we sit down, situation hasn't changed. If you want to keep on working with me, if we're going to keep doing this, you need a change, or I'm no longer going to waste my time, because it's obviously not there as far as the desire to really change. You want the result, but you don't want the discipline to get there. It's like a personal trainer working out. You want to be in great shape, but you don't want to cut out the dessert. So what's it going to be? Except it's finances.
All right. Caesar's next. And then Renee, and then Veronica, and then Raul. Did you have your hand up, Raul? Is what you were going to say still relevant? Okay. Oh, you're stretching. All right. Okay, so run the microphone in that order, from Caesar to Renee to Veronica.
So maybe it's 2 or 3 comments. Maybe I'm a little more old school about the wife working. My wife is working now that our kids are out of the house. I believe that the women should focus on the family.
Okay, we're talking about
can
this
adjust.
situation.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm going to get to that.
Right.
Is that you should be able to live on 80% of your income. I don't care how much you make, because if you cannot live on, let's say, as for example, on the east side, well, go live somewhere else, Lower Valley, or go live in downtown somewhere else where you can afford it. But you can't live on 80%. But it's discipline. And many times I think as parents, we fail to teach our kids when they're still at home to be, to teach them how to manage a credit card, how to manage a payment, what you can afford, you cannot afford. You should be able to live on 70, 80%. I mean, I don't care if you make the minimum. Like a Starbucks, it's ridiculous. A Starbucks is $4. So if you think about it, a gallon of Starbucks is $32 a gallon. And we complain about paying $2.50 a gallon for gas.
Yeah.
You cannot afford, Starbucks. Don't go buy a Starbucks. Go to McDonald's or something else. So many times it's discipline.
Anybody want to sit in front of Caesar for advice?
You know what? And some
it's very
people have
good.
said on side of me and asked me to give them a budget, spend 2 or 3 times of my time making a budget, and then they don't follow the budget. So it goes back to really character and discipline.
Yeah.
And that's going to carry out until you're 65 years old if you never get that right.
Yeah. What I fear, really, legitimately, is that we go through this 12 weeks of this Sunday school, go through all of these practical things. You're getting incredible advice from people like Caesar and Ernie and others that are here. And when we're all said and done, nothing changes. You just go back to the same mess that you were in. You're going to have to make an altar this morning and make a determination. I'm going to get help. It's not fair to my wife, not fair to your children for you to be living the way you're living. Okay, let's go very quickly over here to Renee.
Pastor, these situations when I work out with my clients.
Speak up a little bit, Mike.
For me, it's looking at some very basic strategies here. Number one, you should never pay more than 32% on your rent or your mortgage for 2 people.
When I was growing up, it was 25%.
Right.
Now it's increased. And that's true.
That's
You
the
should-
maximum, but I always challenge my clients if you can live within 28 to 30%. So
Yeah.
strategy number one, you need to downsize where you live. Number two is you need to address the debt. And by addressing the debt, if you tackle the actual rent, pay down the debt. I agree wholeheartedly with Jonathan, as you put them on a cash system, they can only spend so much. But also meticulously look at the tax situation. If they have one child, maybe another one on the way, the child tax credit presents some opportunity at the end of the year for a tax return. But I would look at their tax structure, even though right now, percentage-wise, they're about, 10%. We got to work in that, because a lot of people expect their tax return at the end of the year, and they end up blowing it. So I basically educate my clients, stop relying on the government at the end of the year for a tax return, pay down your debt, and what really concerns me is that you have no savings.
Amen. Very good, Renee. And Veronica.
Pastor, there's a statement that says that poor people try to look rich, and rich people live modestly. They're not trying to go around flashing what they have and so forth. And it's actually scriptural. It's in Psalms or Proverbs where it talks about a person who has a maid, but they live very modestly, and a person who doesn't have anything, but they have all these, showy things, but they're really broke. But as I'm looking at that, I'm looking at he's spending over half of his income just on his home and his car payment. And then I also noticed that the grocery amount was the same, even though his household has gotten bigger. So he's either looking like on the outside, he's got a nicer house.
Or spending. What I thought is a person will spend more eating out,
Sure.
and that'll end up creating the imbalance. Go ahead.
Oh, and the telephone is still the same. The debt is higher. Miscellaneous is more, but he still has nothing.
Yeah. Okay. George, go ahead, and then real quick. You guys got to do this very quickly because I have a
Pastor,
situation number 3 to look at.
just a quick testimony. I've got, unfortunately, I've got my parents that are in another city, and they've lived their life just like this. And so just a quick testimony. One's 80, one's 77, 76, and it doesn't go by a month that I'm not having to go down there and pick up some slack for them financially, for the house, for the car, for food. And it's not that they don't have the money to make it. It's the continual bad habits that have never changed.
Yeah. Okay, that brings us to Raul. Go ahead very quickly.
Yes, I was going to say, I mean, you look at some of these incomes and they look like great jobs, like decent jobs in El Paso, but it's very easy to be in this situation. I worked for the Health and Human Services for 5 years, and say this family could be under the federal income poverty limit, so even a family like this can qualify for food stamp benefits, or, you know, and we don't encourage, you know, to go and take advantage of the system like some people do, and some people, but the reality is there's some people that need the benefits and they can't even qualify, and the people that, you know, that aren't supposed to, they go get benefits. But what I was gonna say is someone in this situation, they've worked a job for 5-10 years, they haven't written a resume in 10 years.
Yeah.
So they don't even know how to market themselves.
Yeah.
I liked what Carlos said, get a better job, but some of these people, they've been in this situation, they don't even know how to market themselves.
Yeah.
We would work very closely with the Texas Workforce Commission, and I'd recommend, if you don't have an up-to-date resume, update it, see what the market is, what they're looking for, see what employers are looking for, and it's all about how you market yourself, because it's very easy that you can get a better job making $1,000 a month, and you're missing out on that.
Okay, another 5 years has passed. So 10 years from when he was a $2,000 a guy, $2,000 a month guy, 5 years to this point, and now another 5 years. Now he doesn't have any more kids, but the one that she was pregnant with is now born. His youngest will be 5 years old, and then say 7 or 10. And so this is his situation now. He's done very well, theoretically, as far as income. Now he's working, and he's making $6,000 a month in income. So like most people, more income, bigger, better, more expensive. So this guy has bought a house at a $1,500 mortgage. Tithe and pledge totals $900 a month. He has 2 car payments now, and this, you know, I just kind of pulled figures out of the air, but I tried to think of, you know, what the $2,000 a guy would do if he had $6,000 a month if character didn't change. So now he's gone out and bought, he's got 2 cars, $1,175, insurances are $300, utilities $2, phone $2. Credit card debt, $450. Groceries, $450. Eating out, $700. It's not, I mean, if you looked at how much you spend eating out, you may be one of those people that uses a credit card, gets a bill, and writes a minimum. You never even look at what you're doing. $700 a month, shopping, $150, miscellaneous, $150. Now the wife, I mean, we make $6,000 a month. I should be able to run around to the fountains and Cielo Vista and all over the place with my credit card and just buy what I want. So she's racking up about $150 in credit card debt added to the already existing debt. All right, so let's do this quickly. We don't have much time because we do want to close this in prayer. Okay, let's say, let's start with Jonathan. So this is the same guy. You've ridden with him now for 10 years. He hasn't listened much, but through your frustrations, you like this guy, so you've hung with him, you feel for him, and you want to help him. What are you going to tell him?
Well, unfortunately, this situation, many times what this has become is the next generation coming up whose parents sacrificed, were disciplined, got them through school, they graduated, They now have a great job. So that's one example. Also, like you had said, the guy who went up and got the higher income. But here is the thousandaires, right? That's exactly what we're talking about. They want to look like the millionaires. You have, when we're looking at 1175, that means you have a couple of cars that are probably $35,000. They went to the dealership. Now dealerships are saying you could finance it for 84 months. Interest rates are pretty low. So heck, let's get the nicest car we can get, and we're spending $600 a month on car payments. So that already, number one, is a big issue that we can try to cut there. But like they had said earlier, Renee had said, if you're trying to get it down to 33%, here you're at 45% just on car and mortgage. That's not including minimums on credit card debt and other utilities. So they're
well,
in
this case, the mortgage is 25% of his. But
yeah, but that number that Renee gave is supposed to be all your fixed minimum debt payments.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's your house plus your car plus minimum credit cards.
All right.
And here, just the house and the car, he's at, I don't know the math exactly, but probably 44%, 45% or so. So that needs to get cut immediately. The eating out and the shopping and the miscellaneous, you can see there, if they just cut that number by 30, 40%, they're now in a situation where they can save, they can get up to what we were talking about on the reserves.
Yeah, at this income, $72,000 a year, you should be able to save, you should have reserves, you should have, it may be, as Cesar mentioned, and I know in theory, it sounds good to have 6 months of savings, but for most, that's not real practical. What I would do if I were you is I would start by making a goal to save $1,000. You can do that. That's $10 a week for a year is half of that. So you can see, you're getting to 100, then you're at 2 and 3 and 400 in just a few months. You'd be encouraged if you would do that. You set that money aside. My dad saved money. They didn't touch it. They just had that ability of discipline not to touch it. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Most of the time, especially at this income level, you'll have a 401k or you'll have other things available to you to be saving. But what I would recommend is 10% of your gross income. So if that's $7,000 according to the tithe, that's $700 a month should be getting saved into multiple different vehicles, not all into a savings or in a 401k, but starting there, that needs to be the first thing. After you tithe and you pledge, 10% goes to savings, short and long-term savings. And then you work from there, trying to lower fixed and variable expenses. But like you said, if they were to do that, we're talking $8,400 in a year. Okay. At this income level, that should not be an issue. 10% should not be an issue.
So are you going to tell this guy that you're finished with him? After 10 years,
yes,
we're still in the same mess. You've done nothing I've said. I'm done with you.
Yeah, because it's obviously not going to change. You could make $12,000 a month, and that just means your mortgage is going to be $2,500, and you're going to be driving the nicest new Mercedes, and it's not going to change. Okay,
so Jonathan is heartless. He'd walk away from this. But listen, this describes so many people today. That's why I'm saying more money, not going to solve your problem, because if you take the same lack of discipline to a higher level of income, you're going to have more problems. Yes.
Pastor, when I have these people come in and these families come in and we're talking to them about financial education and budgeting, most of the times when I'm talking to them, they have no plan on what they want to do with their money. And I think that's the biggest problem that I see, is that they don't know why they're making the money. And a lot of people that are coming in, they're wasting it, like eating out. I just had a member come in, and it was something around here where they were just eating out around $700, and they had Netflix, Hulu, they had all these other TV streaming things. They only have one TV in the house. It just didn't make sense to me. But they were just spending money because they had it, but there was no plan for that money. I think that's the biggest fall that a lot of people go, because like what I tell our members is the difference between a millionaire and a person making a minimum wage is very little. You could do the same exact things, it's just you need a budget for it now. But if you have a plan for your money, even I have this lady that sells burritos, and that's all she does, and she has 3 kids. And she came in, she said, Adam, I want to buy a house. And we worked with her, and today she has her own house. And she sells burritos. This is what she does for a living, but it's because she had a plan that, look, this is what I'm going to, by any means necessary, I'm going to buy my house. If that means cutting back on this or not going out to eat there, I'm going to buy this house. And if we all develop that plan within ourselves, I mean, money's not going to be an issue as long as you have a plan for your money.
All right, why don't we bow our heads at this point? And I really want to close with an appeal here, because again, my fear is that we've been here for 12 or 13 weeks and nothing's going to change. You agree with everything, but the issues of your character, your lack of discipline, however it may manifest, you see yourself in these three situations that we showed you. And what I want to challenge you to do is make a decision right now. I am going to do something about my financial situation. It's not acceptable the way I'm managing the money. It's unfair to my wife and my children. They're going to suffer. They're going to be under stress. Anybody that's had bill collectors call during the day when they know the wife is home and the husband's at work, understand it's not fair what you're doing to your family. If you would discipline yourself, you'd be able to give your wife some spending money and give her some dignity with that spending money. You'd be able to save. You'd be able to improve your current financial situation in this country, in this city, with unemployment rates as low as they are, with the coming economic revival already starting to sweep across our country. There's no excuse for anyone not to be improving their financial situation, not to be making decisions to better manage your money. There's plenty of help out there. Apart from this Sunday school and what the Bible offers us, there are people that you can go talk to. Ernie will be a great conduit for helping you, either himself advising you or sending you somewhere and it's really going to work. You can improve your situation. And I want to challenge everyone here. If you're already doing everything we've been teaching, praise God for that. But if you recognize that there is a need for your character to change, and by virtue of that, your habits, your practices, your mentalities to change, then an altar call is in order right now. And if that describes you, Pastor, I need to make some changes, and from this day forward, I am going on record before my wife, before my brethren, that I'm going to make changes in my financial situation. I'm going to improve. I'm going to take care of the character issues. I want you to lift your hand right now. I want you to lift your hand. Lift your hand, lift your hand. All right, I want us all to pray. I want you to pray this prayer. God in heaven, I thank you right now for the revelation, the guidance and direction that your word provides. I recognize that I have a deficient character. I'm not ready for more money because I haven't been totally faithful with what I have. Therefore, I am going on record before God. Things are going to change. They're going to change in my character. They're going to change in my habits, how I think about money, how I spend money. I repent for my lack of discipline and my lack of character. God, you need to help me, and I'll make the right decisions from this day forward, no matter how hard it is. And Lord, I thank you for helping me and changing me in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so we're going to finish with that. I pray that this Sunday school will help you. We will visit this subject from time to time in sermons, of course, maybe another Sunday school like this in a year and a half or 2 years. You can always get advice, as I said. You don't have to wait for a Sunday school. We have plenty of resources here. You've heard wisdom here. Go to the people in the church that have some semblance of success in this area. That's what we're here for, to help you to take the wisdom and the understanding and the knowledge that we've accumulated and give it to you. So I would encourage you to do that. So we're all done with this. We're going to begin service in a few minutes. Lord bless you. Thank you very much this morning. Amen.